Out of over 100,000 comic book characters in existence, there are very few that can claim to be as well known as Batman. Featured in movies, TV shows, and video games, he's had his highs and lows, controversy among fans, and conquests at the box office. But let's rewind back to a simpler time for the Caped Crusader, before Pattinson donned the cape, before Affleck went to war with Cavill, and Batman had less than 10 hours to prevent Protocol 10, before Bale, Clooney, and Kilmer. Let's go back to when the seed was planted that would result in a TV show that defined Batman for a generation. That seed was planted back when if a person was asked, "What's your favorite Batman movie?" they essentially had only two choices. And under this setting, the back of the box for this video's featured game makes more sense. The Caped Crusader as you've never seen him before, and this is no kid stuff. An effort was being made to separate Batman from the campy TV show that we loved as kids. And while my parents believed Jack Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker was a little too intense for us, playing Batman's first video game on the NES was a family affair. If you're prone to seizures, look away for a few seconds. The opening does something weird with its frame rate, and my recorder could not keep up with it. You may notice that the music is not from Danny Elfman's score from the movie, but it is its own music, and in my opinion, the game does not suffer for it. It's perfect music for a Batman vibe. And you'll also see this is the only mention of Vicky Vale in the entire game during the opening story. This also borrows from the movie. The Joker killing Batman's parents is not canon for the comic books. It was somebody named Joe Chill, and I will try to keep my inner Batman nerd in check for the rest of this walkthrough. This game has 5 levels, and in between each level you get a little cutscene like this one. Level 1 is Gotham City, and as we drop in, you'll see after introducing the stage, top left corner, Batman's name in blue, and then his health meter. When you pause the game with the select button, you'll see Rest 2. That's how many tries you have left to complete the level. And as we move forward, we're going to see all 3 items that can drop in this game. The health pack, the B for bonus multiplier, and then a little missile icon. These are pellets. That's the ammo Batman gets for his different abilities. Once you pick up a pellet, you'll see that Batman's name has turned yellow in the top left corner. You push the start button to cycle through them: the Batarang, the spear gun, and the Dirk. Each one of these take a different amount of pellets. The Batarang costs 1 pellet per use, your spear gun takes 2 pellets per use, and the Dirk takes 3. The enemies drop the pellets fairly often, and each pellet item is worth 10 pellets, so don't be afraid to use them. Now Batman has an inertia to his jump in this game that you have to pay attention to. Here when I'm jumping off of the wall, I'm actually pressing the directional pad opposite the jump, but on the third jump I don't push away at all. That's how far the jump travels. You have to keep this inertia in mind, so you cannot change Batman's direction mid-jump. And this rather simple enemy is actually Deadshot. Now a lot of these enemies are based off of DC villains. This one is Heatwave, and we're going to be seeing a lot of him. He appears in just about every level. And the 2 that are coming up are Shakedown, a lesser known DC villain. These mobile home mines, when they see Batman coming, the little antenna on top start to move quickly. Just step away from where you were when his antenna started moving, because that location is where he has programmed himself to detonate. Wall jumping is going to be a big thing in this game. Also, pay attention to the different levels of Batman's jump. The instruction book calls this a regular jump, which is a short one, and then a Batman jump when you hold the jump button down. Now, most games that give their character the ability to jump have this mechanic, but in order to clear this game, you have to understand the difference between the regular jump and the Batman jump. It's crucial. These are called mobile trackers, and they increase their speed when Batman is at the same height as they are. As we climb up these levels, we come across an enemy called the Enforcer, which is probably based off of another Batman villain, very loosely so. And if you can time it right, a lot of these enemies, you just have to get their rhythm down, and you can take them out pretty easily. We're going to go against another Enforcer, and you'll see at the right angle, you take them out pretty quickly. Another, a little bit more popular DC villain is coming up, KG Beast. He's there chilling against the wall. Take him out quickly because he has some pretty quick attacks and a shuriken that he'll throw at you. We're coming up to the boss for level 1, Killer Moth. You will notice that I end the level equipped with my Batarang, but as soon as a new screen loads in, it automatically reverts back to the punch. Killer Moth's strategy is easy. Just stay in the bottom left corner and wait for him to come to you. Killer Moth is another DC villain. His style is similar to Batman's, only he uses moths instead of bats as his theme. Now here is a scene taken straight from the movie, which took place after Batman realized Joker killed his parents. That leads me to believe that the game is based on the latter half of the movie, just before Batman's showdown with the Joker. And coming up, we have another DC villain, Night Slayer. Now, an interesting thing about this level, Axis Chemicals, that's the way they named it in the movie. It's actually based off of two different locations in the comic books. Batman's first appearance took place at a factory called Apex Chemicals, where he knocked a criminal into a vat of acid. And then Joker's first origin story, because he's had many, took place at a factory called Ace Chemicals, where he fell into a vat of acid running away from Batman. Since this is Batman and the Joker's first appearance in the Michael Keaton franchise, they combined the two names to make Axis Chemicals. And you'll notice if you throw the Batarang at the right angle, you'll hit an enemy multiple times. And here we begin to see how understanding the wall jump is crucial to clearing through a level. I dropped a little too low before I started that wall jump. Your spear gun does not go through walls, but your dirk and Batarang will. And by the way, the P to the left of Batman's hit points stands for Power Life. We'll take down a couple of shakedowns. Then we have a little shortcut we can use here, which will let us skip a javelin. A javelin is an enemy we're coming up to. And now we are full-blown wall jumping and utilizing the differences between our Batman jump and our regular jump in order to dodge the electric walls and floors. It's funny, when we were kids, we only knew about the Batman Adam West TV show and this video game. So we actually thought that this game was based on the 1966 Batman. And we were wondering where Catwoman and the Riddler and Penguin were. Here you can see, very important to understand regular jumps and Batman jumps in order to maneuver. This music is pretty good for a Batman video game, isn't it? The developers really did Deadshot dirty in this game, making him such a simple enemy. And speaking of doing the player dirty, you may look at this and say, well, how am I supposed to dodge that? Well, there's a mechanic in this game When an enemy takes damage and he's flashing, he will not damage Batman. So if you can damage an enemy with maybe a batarang as you're approaching the ledge he's standing on, you can actually move through him without taking any damage. And that little enemy that we just passed that drops little robots that explode on you, they're good for farming, but we won't need to use that. And you can see I just did one of those jumps where you move into an enemy while punching, damage him, and Batman won't take any damage. Now, the inertia that comes from Batman's jump can be negated if you simply walk off of the edge of a ledge, and that gives you more control over Batman's direction in the air. You'll see that demonstrated again right here. I can place him nice and easy in between the gears. Here I should not have jumped off the edge like that. I should have wall jumped off the edge of the platform. And we are coming up to the boss of stage 2. Now the strategy here is in 3 parts. First you want to equip your spear gun, and this first enemy does 2 shots up top that you can duck under, and then 2 shots on the bottom that you can jump over, and just shoot with the spear gun in between. After you take him out, switch to your batarang and head for the upper enemy, that glowing blue orb. And really you can focus on dodging those little drips from the ceiling and just mindlessly throw your batarang. Once you take him out, get ready to jump, because then the first thing he does is fire. Equip Batman's classic punch and just stay at the right distance. Don't get too close to him or you won't be able to damage him. Now, at this point, the game completely deviates from the movie. We have an enemy called Jader coming up. You got to get his timing right. When he jumps, run underneath him, and you can do a little back and forth to minimize the damage. And this song is yet another bop. Now, as you can tell by now, the game takes way more from the comic books than the movie does. The only DC villain that appears in the movie is the Joker, and maybe Two-Face, if you want to be technical, just before he became Two-Face. But the developers of this game borrowed heavily from the comic books. In the movie, every other bad guy besides the Joker were just nameless Joker thugs. Here's a neat trick, letting you utilize the game's level to help you dodge the Jader as you take out the other enemies. Now here's a little situation coming up. Look how we handle this enemy formation. It's kind of tricky. Can't do that every time, but I was pretty happy with the way that turned out. Now this level helps us to see how the old game's replay value could be defined. You're falling down pits and you don't know what's coming. So take this pit for example. I jump down and I fall right into a fan blade, or I could have fallen into an enemy. Over here we don't know what's on the bottom. I do remember, so I'm trying to bait this Jader to the side because of all those fan blades on the bottom. This is the way the old school games were. There were plenty of hazards that you would not expect, and because you weren't expecting them, you almost felt like you were duped into taking damage, or maybe even losing one of your lives. But that was par for the course. You learned that the hazard was there, and then on your replay, you would remember that those obstacles were there, and that's how you would manage playing the game. Then once you beat the game, you go back and you play it, remembering where all of these stage hazards and enemy formations were, and see how quickly you could beat the game after learning and remembering these enemy formations. So this game could take you up to 2 hours to clear all 5 levels, and then once you learn the enemy formations, you come back and you can beat the game in 30 minutes if you know how to play it right. And that's just playing it comfortably, not speed running. And I'm not a doctor, but I do imagine that that would be a good mental exercise, memorizing 30 minutes worth of enemies and obstacles, and then applying what you remember on the replay. Now we have a nice big enemy coming up here, the EEV. It's a tank that will shoot at you as it changes direction. So whatever platform it's on, once it stops and runs out of room and it has to go in the opposite direction, it will shoot just before changing directions. The Batarang is the best way to take care of it. Because it's so big, the Batarang will hit it multiple times before it returns to Batman. Now today, you can go into gas stations, auto parts stores, grocery stores, and you can find Batman fidget spinners, Batman keychains, coffee mugs, slippers with the Batman logo on it, and that's just a fraction of the wide range of Batman-related products out there. It was not always this way. This year, 1989, when this movie and this game came out, this is the year that Batman became a cultural icon, the one that we know and love today. It all started 1989 with the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman. Now here's an example of jumping into an enemy while punching so that it does not damage Batman. We're going to have to use this a lot in the last level of this game. Here it is again. Wait for the heat wave to stop shooting, jump up while you're punching, and you move in without Batman taking any damage, if you time it right. Now here coming up is what should be an easy way to handle the EEV. I took a hit from that one when I should have jumped, but if you go up against this wall, he can't shoot you at all. And then he has such a big platform before he reaches the end that you can take him out fairly easily. Now another DC Comics villain coming up, the Electrocutioner. Now there is a way to bait or glitch him into facing the left wall, and you can shoot him from behind. I don't do that. What I like to do is come in here with a full health bar, plenty of Batarangs, and outlast him. There's also probably a cleaner way of handling him utilizing those platforms. You know what's one thing I've never figured out about this game? Why does this next level's music go so hard? Now there's a couple things to take note of here. The enemies behaving like Shakedown are actually the DC villain Maxi Zeus. And if you look at the level background along with the description up on the top, you'll notice futuristic life samples made by genetic engineering. It's interesting that this game actually got 2 sequels, technically. One sequel was based on Batman Returns, the movie sequel to the 1989 Batman film. But this game also got its own comic book-based sequel called Return of the Joker. Since this laboratory is not in the movie, it's my personal fan theory that this level explains how the Joker returns, because, spoiler alert, just like at the end of the movie, the Joker dies at the end of this game. We're going to see another demonstration of attacking while moving into an enemy so that Batman doesn't take any damage. And I hope that you're enjoying these little notes that are displayed between each level and during each cutscene that comes from the instruction manual. I always appreciated instruction manuals and the enrichment that they brought to the experience of playing the game. I have a video, just a little YouTube short, about that. We've seen a lot of DC villains in this game, and actually these DC villains, I call them that because they're more prominent in the comics, but they are technically mostly Batman villains. Although they may appear in other superheroes' comic books, they are primarily part of Batman's rogues gallery. And I wish that we would see more of them in film and on TV. Just a personal gripe of mine, I think that we see too much of Batman and the Joker. It is epic, it is poetic, and it sells at the box office, which is why they use them so much, no doubt. But Batman has a wide variety of rogues. Not all of them are of the psychotic, murderous nature of the Joker, and I think that there's more that can be explored in that area. Now, these robotic enemies are called Rail Runner, and you can see as Batman punches them, they don't damage him. That's good practice for the boss that we have coming up. And notice the placement of the next upcoming mobile home mine. It's placed so that when Batman jumps in the air with that inertia that you can't stop, it starts running towards you. And what we have here, the next 3 levels of platforms, is the most tricky part of the game, aside from the last level itself. You see those little conveyor belt steps up on the top. We're going to have to maneuver our way across those. And what we have to do is use the dirk to take out this enemy so that we free up that platform in order to take out the next enemy. And rather than go along the bottom, we go along the top. Now watch my flex showing off my wall jumping skills. Just kidding. I slipped and fell and I was frantically trying to recover. Now we ascend these stairs. After these stairs we have kind of a long walk, and then we'll be facing the boss. The EEVs make their return. We know how to handle them using our Batarang. Unfortunately, in this game, the enemy drop rate is nice enough. That's one of the things that makes this game challenging yet fun, is that while I do take damage from these tricky enemy formations, I do get enough items and heal packs to make it and to enjoy making it along the way. Now, the boss strategy coming up, like we said before, the Rail Runner is good training for it. It is the dual container alarm. That's the name of the boss. And it moves along a set path. If you get up and wall jump to the top 2 platforms that you can fit on, then just turn and face the enemy and punch. He'll move through you, and as long as you keep the damage going, he won't damage you. Just watch that shot every now and then. You'll have to jump over it or duck underneath it. Once you take out one of these dual containers, the other one starts to move a lot faster, but it will, once it opens its eye, stay along the bottom. Use the same technique where you damage him and have him move through you as he does so, and if you have enough health, you can outlast him. And in true old school final level fashion, you have to use everything you know about Batman's movement and abilities to get to the end of this level. And if you don't, the game has no mercy on you. In fact, you could easily spend just as much time on this one level as you have on the entire 4 levels before it. And that fall that I did between the wall and the gear, that's threading the needle, getting through that without taking any damage, which is cool, but it was unintentional and it slowed me down. And my advice for this level is don't get hit by easier enemies at the beginning, because chances are you will take damage once you start the bell tower climb. but we know how to handle the heat waves. Here we are utilizing wall jumping and the timing of the wall jumps compared to what the enemy at the top of the climb is doing. And here begins the final ascent that is the most challenging part of the game to survive. These javelins, they fire a shot once and then twice in a row, and then they take a long pause, and that's when I jump and attack them. This jump here is almost impossible not to take damage from. I got lucky there, but I don't always do that. Here we have to wall jump while timing what the javelin is doing. This is a much easier jump because you can drop a little bit lower before you start your wall jump. The timing of the javelin. Here's another one of the impossible jumps. You have to fall at just the right spot and jump at just the right height to fit between the two. And I can do it maybe 5% of the time without taking any damage. Your results may vary. We've finally come to the top of the level, and I like to come up here hopefully on my first try after a game over, because then I'm coming in here with 2 lives. So I can recharge my health while fighting the first boss, and then recharge while fighting the second. Now my strategy for Firebug coming up is to throw your batarangs at him as soon as he approaches you. That will cause him to jump back, and he'll throw 2 fireballs at you that you can jump over. And then he'll get back up close to you and just rinse and repeat. As soon as he gets close, throw the batarangs. But really, as soon as he gets close, start throwing the batarangs, or he'll start punching. But if you have a good rhythm going where you're throwing your batarang even before you land, after the second jump you got a batarang out there, that'll chase him back after you do a few points of damage to him. Just keep that rhythm going until you take him out. And it's interesting, in the movie, Batman had one of Joker's thugs that was very formidable, and it was a tough fight for him before he could face the Joker himself. And they kept that same thing in this game, although in the movie it was a common thug that was very powerful. In the game, it's one of Batman's rogues gallery, Firebug. Now the confrontation with Joker himself. Now, the strategy for Joker is tricky. The gun that he has, which is very similar to the gun he took out Batman's plane with in the movie, can do more than 1 point of damage to you. As you can see there, it took 3 points of damage. But once he gets close to you, there's a safe spot between the tip of his gun and the Joker himself. And if you stand there and punch him, the gun won't do any damage to you. Now when he raises his hand, you have to be careful. That's when he's about to call down lightning. So just take a step back and then continue punching. If you're punching consistently, the Joker will run through you while he's flashing and you won't take any damage. Jump just to play it safe in case his first attack after running is shooting at you. And at that point it's just keeping the pressure on him until the epic slow motion conclusion of the fight. So Batman's no-kill rule was still coming into focus back in 1989. And we have completed Batman's first adventure on the original NES. It's really a very enjoyable game to me. It is challenging, and it's almost too challenging, but it does not cross that line, and I still have fun with it. Shout out to the two individuals involved in composing the music for this game. I put their real names underneath the nicknames that they would use back then because I think they deserve every bit of credit for the soundtrack to this game. But hey, thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it proves helpful if you ever try to tackle this yourself. And thanks for listening to An Old Gamer.
He's a little cuckoo. His coconut is strange. He is a nut. So you gotta understand that, and you gotta play him like that. But I tried to do Batman as a very likable nut. And yeah, well, that's enough of this.